Off top, the smallest island in the world is in Indonesia. It's called Simping Island. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show after a Game 7. I wanted to say thrilling. I wanted to hype it all up.
Yeah.
It was eventful. Game 7. I'm joined by David, Dennis, and Charlie Kravitz as usual. David is giving us a little tease with his shirt. Like it's like real sexy right there, but it ain't you being sexy. You got Beyonce underneath your shirt, which is not fair to us. It's distracting.
Looks like your Twitter algorithm right here on my shirt.
I hate you so much. All right, Charlie, where you want to start?
I mean, I wanted to start with Simping Island, but
yeah.
I guess I'll just do the unartful transition to that Game 7 of the NBA Finals, where I'm going to say it, I feel like we got blue-balled. We got blue-balled in the NBA Finals because of the Tyrese Haliburton injury.
I mean, that would suggest you had some expectations. We always talk about, I know people been hyping up Game 7s and saying they're always very close, but like we always know Game 7s are rock fights, right?
Yes, but he was a flamethrower. He comes out, he's 3 for 4 from threes, hit 3 absolute bombs in that game. They are up at, Indiana's up at halftime even after the injury. But I do want to put a tiny pin in the Haliburton injury. There's a million things to get to this, but I'm going to go with my feeling first and ask you guys about it. The Thunder win Game 7. This team was incredibly hyped because of the net rating, the way Presti built this as a sustainable project that can go on for a decade. We were feeling like this is the start of a mini dynasty. And it was a very strange game because of the Haliburton injury. And I'm just going to say it. To me, it didn't feel like a coronation. Yeah. Even though they won the NBA Finals, even though they won Game 7, they accomplished the goal. I know I'm taking the fun out of it, but
you're not
taking
the
guys,
fun out of it. I don't
did
think
it
so.
feel like a coronation for a team that we thought was great coming into this series?
I mean, I agree with you that it, and the funny thing is about it, I think that it would have been different if they would have closed them out in Game 6 because it felt like the momentum was going that way. And so, like, whether I should feel differently about these team or not, maybe we'll figure that out as we discuss it going forward. But I do feel differently about this team based on the way that they closed out this particular series. It seemed like they struggled with a team that was not nearly as good as them. And even in this final game, we're looking for something to hang our hat on. Like, would love Jalen to have another 40-point game or SGA to put up big numbers, but we didn't get anything like that.
Neither one of them were efficient.
SGA was like 8 for 27 or something like that. It was something.
He was 8 for 27. Jalen was 7 for 20. They were combined 15 for 47 in the Game 7. If I had told you that before the game, you would have felt great if you were a Pacers fan.
Yeah, I couldn't help but watch this game. And this part of the answer is as I'm watching this game, there were multiple times where I was like, if Haliburton's in, I think the Pacers are winning this game, man. Like, there were stretches where, I mean, from Game 6 on, I mean, really from Game 3 on, if you look at how this series had gone, the Pacers really outclassed them in Game 3. They outplayed them for like 45 minutes in Game 4. They got smacked in Game 5. They dominated in Game 6. And it's just like, this felt like they were just the better team for the second half of the series. And for long stretches of this game, it looked like Nembhard really had SGA's movements kind of figured out. The switches were like confounding them defensively. Carlisle was dialing up the help defense like at the perfect time. And it just felt like if they could get some offense going where TJ McConnell is not turning the ball over as much. Like the third quarter, they were like, TJ McConnell, he's taking over, but like it was score or turnover. There was no in between. Like, if they had somebody who could handle those blitzes, it just felt like the Pacers are going to win, which makes it hard for this to feel like that dominant win from OKC that we thought we were going to get.
Are we being unfair? Or like, I mean, I guess that's a question.
No, we definitely are.
When a team,
but we've been this title has been affected because it's like hard to separate.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I feel like I'm asking the question, are we being unfair? Because I think we should celebrate a champion the way a champion needs to be celebrated, but we also can't unsee the things that we've seen, the good and the bad of this team. And are we just a prisoner of the expectations that we had for them? Would we feel differently about this if they didn't have that net efficiency rating that got all of our attention as best of all time and all that, and if they didn't seemingly put the Pacers away earlier in this series and then let them back into it? Like, is it unfair of us, I guess, to use that to like I guess, demote them in some way. It feels weird. They
we aren't demoting them. There's no asterisk.
Yeah, there's no asterisk. But I have been, as this playoffs have been going on, really kind of compared this Thunder team to the first Warriors championship, and the similarities are kind of getting they're kind of eerie a little bit. Like you sweep the first round, you go down 2-1 against a veteran team. You handle the conference finals in 5. You go down 2-1 in the finals. And then now you have a situation where this injury sort of taints how a lot of people feel about it, which happened to the Warriors. But the way that this works is what you do next could kind of rewrite backwards, because the Warriors came back and went 73-9 after, for those who don't remember, they won their first championship. And all anybody's talking about is the injuries. Kyrie Love, but before then, they never had to play the Spurs. The Clippers had gotten eliminated. So it was they had this sort of easy route. And then you come out and dominate the next season. And it's oh, okay, no, that goes back and sort of legitimize that championship. I think OKC may kind of run into that, where next season will kind of determine how we look at this championship and add a little bit more weight to it. Fair or unfair, I think that's how people are going to kind of look at this championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a apt comparison, especially since, I mean, I know SGA has pulled off the MVP, regular season MVP, the finals MVP, won the finals in the scoring title, and he is ascended to superstar status. But I don't think that the way that he played in this final game is the way that we expect him to play. That's the same way that we used to look at Steph around those finals. And
he was the best player in this game, but that's just because this game was also sort of, very
Game 7.
Yeah. But the thing that's interesting about this is I do think that, to David's point, we are going to look at next season and define what OKC is, but we're not going to look at the regular season. We know they're going to win 60 plus games because that's what they've done the last 2 seasons. And it's going to be this whole put it off, see if they're dominant in the playoffs next year against a bloodbath of a West.
Yeah, I mean, I do also think that there is some value in what happened this season. So the team that comes back is going to be a more confident team and probably is going to be a little bit better. They're a younger team. I think, didn't they say they were the youngest team to win a championship? I believe the average age of that team, it might have been, or I could just be pulling
I think they said youngest at 40 years or something like that. I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, this team is going to get better off that experience, and I suspect that they'll be back next year to at least the conference championship.
Well, there's so many things that can happen, injuries and stuff, but they should, in theory, they should be as good or better. I mean, the craziest thing is it's so funny we did this conversation. I'm looking at stats, at some of the stats now. It's eerie how close we talk so much about Anthony Edwards, being reminiscent of Michael Jordan. It's eerie how similar SGA's stats are from 2023 to 2025. I don't think he's anything like Michael Jordan. I want to be very clear about this. I'm not, but both averaged 31.4 points per game, right around 6 assists. MJ was 6.5 rebounds. Shea was 5. Their true shooting percentage was incredibly close. Their PER was within 0.6 of each other. With all of this happening, with the Haliburton injury, with all that stuff, is this still an incredibly historic run by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to cap it off with the championship at age 26?
Yeah, and it's great from the whole team. And to Dominique's point, they are going to be better. They're already better than they were in the second round. When they played Denver and Denver had, ran the zone, that team looked like a team that just did not know how to handle that. And Carlisle and the Pacers ran zone, I think, more than anybody, top 5 in the league in the regular season. And they didn't even bother in the finals because OKC had learned so much about how to beat it. And I think what you're going to have here is Chet is probably going to be better next year. He was hurt most of this year. I think J-Dub has made some sort of leap in these last, few weeks, and SGA is just naturally going to get better. This is what we're seeing this year is the worst version of this OKC Thunder team.
The defense does stand out, and I know the Game 6 they did not have that same defense, but that's the one thing that, even though they shot poorly in this game from 3 and just about everywhere, that's the one thing that felt like is a little bit different from most finals that we look back on. We remember some offensive performance. I think the thing that stands out, aside from the J-Dub 40-point game, is how suffocating this defense can be, and they saw it again tonight without Haliburton. Of course, it gets even worse, but it felt like at stretches in this series that defense was just unbeatable.
So, Dave, the one thing that you said about how they're going to be better, I know that's I agree with you in theory, but something I've been thinking about with the last 3 champions is like, I know Zach Lowe talks about how hard it is to win one title, and he's right, and but like each of the last 3 champions, we thought Denver was set up with Jokic to continue to win titles, and now that roster looks like it's lacking so much depth. Last year, we thought Boston was set up to win championships moving forward, and OKC is probably set up with the best of those 3 teams with the way that they've accumulated draft capital in the second apron. They have sort of this cheat code to bring in talent. But like, is it even possible at this point in the NBA to be like, this team's a lock to continue winning championships? It doesn't feel like that, like it was in the 2010s.
Yeah, I mean, this is the test. I think OKC is the test. Like, they are the team that is most equipped to repeat that there is in the league. Like, even I think what happened with Denver, especially, is that we kind of underestimated what like those fringe moves meant. It took us some years to like figure out that these sort of fringe losses, the KCPs, like that stuff really impacts champions. And like we learned with the I mean, that's what happened with the Lakers. Like every one of these teams win a championship and they lose these sort of fringe players. And that really makes a difference. They're harder to replace than they were in the 2010s. And I think that like the Thunder are not going to lose any of those dudes. Like, I think that's the big difference.
But I also think that the fringe players are more important than they've ever been. And I think the talent, and it's probably a reflection of the talent in the league, because there's one thing that used to always be true is like, if you got one of these guys that's in the all-time great conversation, you gonna have a chance. And I think that's what we were kind of stuck in, that old way of thinking when Jokic, we were like, all right, Jokic finally made it. Murray's healthy. As long as Murray's healthy, this team, as long as he's playing as well as long as Jokic is playing as well as he has been playing, this team will be in the championship. And that was kind of like how it felt like the NBA normally worked. It don't work like that anymore. It feels like as the talent in the league, and there's no spots, as we always talk about, there's no spot for any like non-shooters on the floor. Like those ancillary players, the others as they call them, like they've become more and more important. And you see that if those guys aren't there, your team is not nearly as competitive as it once was.
Yeah, like if this Thunder team goes in the next season and it's like, we can't pay Caruso and like Kasem Wallace, I'd be like, I don't know, like that's to your point, like that's how important that stuff is. We were
Caruso
talking about
was a huge addition.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was made a big difference. And that like when we talk about stuff that you can't, he was. And we talk about things you can't stop thinking about from the series. The first half of Game 1, I'll remember forever, and the way that they made the Pacers look like they look like a team that you needed to like blow the whistle and like let them take the ball up to half court, because the way that defense just smothered them. Now they didn't get the transition points or the points off turnovers and all that, but like it looked like the Pacers legitimately could not get the ball across half court. And that half of defense is something that'll stick with me from this through this entire series.
So we've talked about parity a lot, and we've talked about, I mean, honestly, I feel bad because like this Thunder team was a lot of the story of the season. But if I'm going to set, and we'll pivot to the Pacers after this a little bit, but if I were to set the over-under at 2.5 titles with this group over, I don't know, say the next 7 years with OKC, including this one, you're taking the over or the under?
I'm definitely taking the under.
I'm taking the under. The NBA is as windowless a league as there possibly can be. And then there's also Wembanyama. Like, I'm not betting on anything until Wembanyama. Like, it's funny, like, you talk about these teams at the beginning of the year, they were talking about the Knicks, and the Knicks were like, they got 2 years to do this, and they're going to do this. Like, Wembanyama erases the idea of a window, because you never, like, this dude could win a championship sometime in the next couple of years, and you don't know when he's going to stop. Like, that changed the equation of everything that's going on in the league.
And he's a Buddhist now.
Good.
All right, so you talked about parity and windows closing, and that's a perfect transition to actually get into the Haliburton Achilles tear, which, as big of a bummer as possible when he had flames shooting out of to start that game. But the reason it's an amazing transition is we looked at the odds for the championship next year in Indiana. We thought was set up to be the best odds in a very weak East. They're now 15th. They have the 15th best odds to win the NBA title next year. And honestly, I can't remember a sort of championship game gut punch being the way that Haliburton injury was, because you see gut punches and you think of like wide right or chokes or things like that. And this is something that just felt it felt like a Willis McGahee knee injury or Colt McCoy getting knocked out of it. It felt like a football thing that would happen in a college game. It's just really unique to see that happen that way.
But it's worse than that.
Yeah, it was worse than that.
Yeah,
He's missing all of next year, and it was Game 7. And so with this, I kind of want to go through some of the what ifs, some of the spider webs that are going to come off of this injury. And I want to go with the first one because, like, to me, I think I'm starting to like settle into what this playoffs was. And even though Oklahoma City was the team of the season, Indiana was the team that I'm going to remember from this postseason run. And this, like, we're going into this being like, this is going to be the most improbable champion in our lifetimes in the NBA if they won. And I want to start with the low hanging fruit. And David, you answered this a little bit, but Domonique, your thoughts are like, if Haliburton had stayed in this game, just on your gut feeling, do you think they win this Game 7?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's much closer than it was. I find it hard to say that I think that they win. Haliburton everything is very different in this game if he stays in there. I think it's definitely close, and the way that he was shooting, they probably do. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I think OKC still wins the game, but I think it's a lot closer in competition.
Can I sell you guys a tiny bit on it? He had more threes than anyone else in the game.
Right.
TJ McConnell had 7 turnovers, and I'm not playing. He's a backup point guard,
right?
And he played his little balls off to get him there. But
that's gracious.
This happened. The separation happened in the third quarter when OKC was just taking the ball from McConnell and the Pacers over and over again, and that's the time when you have the steady guy, the guy who doesn't turn the ball over. That run might not feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier there were a lot of times I kind of was watching. I kind of felt like, man, Haliburton. I felt like they would not be in the position they were in a bunch of times when Haliburton were there. I'm not going to say definitively that I feel like the Pacers win this game, but I was more sort of feeling like we were robbed of a classic because both these teams came out executing just so like perfectly. Like we watched like 6 minutes of almost like perfect basketball until Haliburton went out. Like Nembhard, there was a play early when Nembhard was like defending SGA, and SGA was just in hell, and everybody was just like, everything was like so required such precision to get a point like scored, and Haliburton was answering all the critics that were like being idiots in the playoffs. And when he falls, I just will never forget the image of him falling, smacking the ground as soon as he does, saying no, 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 and then saying I did, like crying like that. Like I can't think of an injury that has made me. I mean, yes, there have been like devastating injuries, like things like that were outside of that has made me as sad as seeing that happen to Haliburton, and then thinking about what could have happened. And this game, like them winning this, I've been thinking about the comp. The only comp I could think of in terms of upsets is Eli Manning and the Giants beating the undefeated Patriots. Like that's what we were looking at, a chance of having that, and we didn't get to have it.
It sucks for him. It's terrible for the team and the fans going forward, but selfishly, it really sucked for us.
The game went to screeching. The game went to became a slog.
Yeah,
it took me pretty much until like the third quarter to really like even get back into like I need to start watching what's actually happened on the court. You know what I'm saying? Like I just couldn't stop thinking about it.
And it felt like the game was over when it happened, and the Pacers still stuck in there and hung around. But I think we all anticipated that at some point the talent would pull away. Yeah. I think that's the part that hurt for me is like. What was taken from us was a close competitive game, and obviously it's terrible for his career and for that team and those fans, but also it's like we had this very valuable thing that we so rarely get, a Game 7 in a series that's been fun and entertaining and exciting, and then we get down to it, and in the first quarter we lose.
Was also
the most interesting character, honestly.
He was the character of the finals, and also it felt very different than I mean, people will compare it to the Durant injury, and we're now after the Tatum injury, I think there's gonna be a legitimate discussion this offseason about why these Achilles are happening more frequently to younger players, and just the style of the NBA. I mean, there's been so much talk about the length of the season already and like how physical it is to run and play 94 feet the way these teams do. But this one felt definitively different from the Durant injury to me, because like the Durant one, it was like, oh, he should never have been out there.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. It's like he came back he had missed, I don't know, 3 weeks, like whatever, however many weeks with that injury, and it happened immediately. The fact that Haliburton played in Game 6 and looked relatively okay after the first couple minutes, and then came out in this game and seemed like he was moving better.
Yeah.
It was like, there was a shock factor of it, especially because people have been slipping on the floor in the first 6 minutes of that game. And so like, at first when he went down, like like David, your eyes are better on this. At first when he went down, before they cut back to him, I was like, oh, he slipped on the floor. He's fine. And it was just giving up a fast break. And then they cut to his face. And before they even showed the replay, I was like, oh no, this is an Achilles.
Yeah, I saw it. It was a stump, like it wasn't a slip.
Yeah.
I saw it was just a straight up stumble, and I was like, oh man, because you're right. Because I'm watching this and I'm forgetting the possibility of that happening. You know, like the Durant thing. You're watching, and I remember being nervous when Durant was out there the whole entire time, being like, okay, this seems like we'll see what happens. And then it happens. It's like, that's it. This one, you kind of forget he'd hit 3 threes. After Game 6, the conversation was, what injury? Were they playing a little coy? All this sort of stuff. And then this happens like, oh yeah, this was always a possibility. And it happened at the absolute worst time.
We always talk about how the playoffs is like, for the NBA, it's where the stars are created. And I think during the regular season, we celebrate guys, we talk about guys, but you don't become like a household name or a marquee superstar until you make a run in the playoffs. And whether Haliburton is as good as the top guys in the league or not, frankly, didn't feel like it mattered at this moment. Like I mentioned, he was the character of this final series. It felt like no matter what happened in this game, where they won or lost, we were going to come into next season feeling different about him. He had earned himself a lot more fans. He earned himself a lot more attention. It was going to be a ridiculous offseason and a ridiculous start to next season for Haliburton. And I think in this situation, we often, we know how it is. Guys want to play in these big games. I suspect that the strained calf is going to take on a different complexion going forward.
Now going to be the scariest injury in the NBA. If someone gets a strain, it's going to be months off. You better be 100%. There's going to be imaging before people can play again with that type of injury.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that happens to be one of the lasting effects of this series.
Yeah, I mean, he was having something that we hadn't seen, which was a March Madness run in the NBA playoffs.
Perfect. That's exactly when you said you compared to the Patriots. I was thinking Villanova, NC State. This is what it felt like.
Yeah, you do not get you get this in a 4-game setting in March for college basketball. You do not get this over a sustained 2.5-month playoffs where you are just on fire, hitting game winners, 4 games where you have a 2% chance of winning, and you do this and you become like this household name star over the course of a playoffs. We just do not see that. We see that maybe at a first round run, maybe first 2 rounds. We don't see this all the way through to Game 7 of the finals. This just does not happen. He had a once in a lifetime type of run.
Yeah. Here's an insane stat from this game. The Pacers had not turned the ball over until the play that Tyrese Haliburton tore his Achilles on. Wow. Turnovers are why they lost that game.
Yeah.
They turned the ball over 21 times to Oklahoma City 7. They had played flawlessly until that moment.
Yeah, it was perfect. Like both teams, there were like different stretches in this finals, 8-minute stretches, 1 quarter, where I felt like we were watching perfect basketball between 2 teams who were like either the offense was perfect on one team, the defense was perfect. There were different stretches where we watched perfect basketball over the course of 7 games.
And the injury and all the emotion of it, I think and this is a little bit of a detour, but the emotions of sports, we all get into it, but since we cover it, it's so rare that there's a fan interest where you actually feel that, and it's different when you see a guy who the question is, do you play in this game? You start there. Obviously, you get an opportunity.
It didn't even seem like a question to me after Game 6. But maybe I'm dumb. It didn't cross my mind that he wasn't going to play in that game.
It didn't cross my mind until he was injured. And then it hit me. I started going through my head of experiences that I had where they always say, and it's not all the time, but it's either one of 2 things. You have to deal with the pain. You can't make it any worse, or there is some risk of making it worse, and then the decision is made. I don't know what was told to him, but obviously we didn't hear about those conversations. And then when you go in there in that moment and to think about what he is juggling at that time, just before that happens, he's hitting big threes. He's balling in the most important game, a Game 7 in the finals. And then not only does he have an injury that's going to cost him the rest of his game, it's an injury that's going to impact the rest of his career.
Yeah.
And him laying on the ground banging is like, that just brought me back to feeling like an athlete again, or feeling like a fan where I'm not watching this as a neutral observer. I'm like, damn. That sucks.
Did you ever have a teammate or people where you're like, God, I don't know if you should be playing in this game?
Yeah, every week.
No, but like, yeah.
Yeah, none of us should have been playing in any game.
But like beyond the, all of us, like where there was like ones where you're like, this is particularly like, this is crazy.
Absolutely. I don't remember the exact injury, but I do remember specifically having an injury and a high ankle sprain and wanting to play, and having Champ tell me, this was in my second year, having Champ tell me there's a difference between being tough and dumb tough. Right now you're being dumb tough. You can't play like that. And then later that season, Champ did something terrible to his shoulder. They wrapped it up with some stuff. They shot some in it, and I was looking, hey, Champ, tough, dumb tough. Remember that? He took his big out there and played football and probably balled out. So like that happened all the time with guys. And like, I wasn't as close with the linemen, but the linemen, there was a number of linemen at many stops that I was at where they would not practice very often during the week. And then there's the Toradol shot line in the pregame, which you get there extra early. You get the Toradol shot. Disproportionately big guys who I ain't see take no reps all week, but they go ahead, Toradol shot, got the one cheek out, because you get the shot in your butt cheek, got the one butt cheek out, standing in a line, go out there and play. So yeah, it's not, it's routine. And particularly if you're in the playoffs or in the important game, it's like, what am I here for? I know it sounds ridiculous when you step back, but that's how you think, is like, I'm not going to play? Like, what I do all this other shit for? I mean, I'm here now.
When this injury happened, I knew I was going to be talking to you guys, and Domonique, keep crossing my mind, because I'm just like thinking about what you're seeing when you're seeing this. Like, you do this again. He does this again, right? Like he would do this a million times over again. They showed him that video and they say, this is a possibility of what's going to happen. He's going out there every time, right?
And that's the interesting part to the question I was saying going forward, which like Charlie framed it as, this is going to be the scariest injury, the calf strain is going to be the scariest injury in basketball going forward. Yeah, it's going to be, I think regular season, you're not going to have to drag guys off the court. Postseason, it's a different conversation where you have to make that consideration. And the next time someone has that injury, we all are going to be really critical of that particular player, whether he goes on the floor or not.
Can I like get on
the team
a little soapboxy here, because I found myself getting a little angry after this injury, and was angry because like let me be optimistic about this. Let me flip it a little bit and say my hope that out of this injury is that there is a shift in the way that we sort of talk about these players leading up to these moments. The conversation about Haliburton all postseason was very frustrating. This idea of like this, we're going into a finals where this dude is making a magical run, and we're asking this dumb question about, is he a superstar? Which I'm not sure how we're asking, why that's even part of the conversation. And when he struggles dealing with his injury, right? We're talking about, does he have the heart to do this? Does he fold? Is he like what? And we're talking about, he's injured. Is this guy selfish for playing? Is he selfish for not playing? We had Darius Garland with a toe injury, and it's like, this guy is a chump for not playing. And we did not spend nearly enough time of our like airwaves speaking about what Tyrese Haliburton was doing as a player for these last 2.5 months. That was game changing. That was like career changing for him. That was monumental. And now it's stripped away in a heartbreaking moment. And we can't go back and retell those stories. We can't eulogize this guy after we've been spending all of this time asking asinine questions and pointing the finger at him and saying he wasn't aggressive and didn't have the heart for it. My hope is that we go forward and like treat these, like talk about this game in a different way than we talk about it right now.
Maybe Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like, Charlie gives me a hard time because I always am like, well, I don't be on social media that much. That wasn't the experience that I had. And maybe I'm watching the game differently, but I I did feel like we were celebrating how Haliburton was coming out of nowhere making these shots. I did hear the is he a superstar conversation or not, but like it didn't feel to me like we were being unfair to him. I do think that generally, like, it's somewhat human nature that when we watch these games, we dehumanize the guys. And that's the part about the injury that is like, for me also, as an ex-athlete, when I see that happen, immediately I'm no longer thinking about, oh, what's his legacy? Is he going to be clutch in this moment? I immediately go like, God. And I think we all do. That sucks for him as a human being.
Honestly, the crazy thing is, like, I think you're right, Dave. And I think that's like, even some on this network, some of the dumbest things we do when we talk about basketball is when we just get into the cliche tropes about what a superstar could be. When it's like, all right, this dude just creates instant offense in a way that, like, you know, you have Mike D'Antoni talking about this is the evolution of the 7 seconds or less Suns teams. Like, it's obvious that this guy is, and I'm gonna say, like, so much of his game is feel and passing, like, is a transformative offensive player. But it's just, to me, this is like beyond that, like the eulogy that we miss with this is like, he was on the verge of being a folk hero. It was like the greatest clutch performance in NBA history over the course of it. Yeah. And like, if he comes out and plays the whole game in Game 7 and scores 25 points and win, like, honestly, I don't know if it's the same because they're not playing against the LeBron Heat, but to me, it's like right there with Dirk in 2011 as one of these runs that would be an indelible image. And it's still, honestly, it kind of still is. It'll just have a different ending, but an indelible image of a run from a player who reached something that and most of us didn't know was even possible.
Right. I mean, I guess that's why I disagree with you guys. This is not going away. Next time a team that is makes a run,
it went away in game 4? Like, he had 4 points or whatever. Yeah. And it was like, this dude doesn't show up. He folded. You're playing against one of the greatest defenses we've seen. Lou Dort and Caruso we did this the entire time of the Thunder run. Jokic struggles, but Jokic didn't show up. Anthony Edwards struggles, and the Edwards. Like, how many times we're going to watch this defense do this before we realize that we're watching a great defense instead of saying Tyrese Haliburton is not scoring enough? Yes, he could have been more aggressive at different points, but it takes time for a dude to figure out one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen. Oh, by the way, in the midst of a playoff performance that is, find one in any sport. A playoff performance that has this many clutch moments or this level of clutch moments in any sport that we've seen over this stretch.
It's also, this is supposed to be impossible in the NBA with 7-game series with like the best player and the best teams winning over and over again. I'm not saying they weren't the best team because they were clearly one of the 2 best teams in the NBA, but we didn't think that going into the postseason. Like, this never happens. And like, to me, it would have been the biggest underdog of my lifetime in the NBA, biggest underdog story. But also, like, I want to talk for a second about the what if for the other side and the spiderwebs about this. Like, if this begins an OKC dynasty, people remember that Haliburton came out in Game 7 of their first championship on fire and ended up tearing his Achilles. And if it doesn't, if OKC had lost that game, here's the biggest what if of this is like, they were going to panic trade someone. I genuinely think that like this changed the course of history for OKC. I mean, and that because you can't be the 68 win team with the greatest net rating in NBA history that goes up 3-2 against the biggest underdog and loses that type of game, and then go into the offseason and Sam Presti be like, I'm holding pat again. Like this, the splinter effects of this, what changed with the way that game played out, we're going to see on both the East and West for the next decade.
I think Presti sticks with those guys, though. I do think Presti sticks. I don't
know. Maybe he does or he doesn't. Like, it was clear. I guess the question would be, who does he panic trade? Like, getting rid of Giddey was obvious after last season. Like, that was an obvious move. It's not
that wasn't a panic trade. That was like a see you, buddy.
I know, but that was an obvious move. Like, his impact on the floor alone was not net positive. Yeah, the off the floor stuff was also an issue. And then he has these stockpile of picks, so you can use those picks to acquire someone, so you don't have to panic trade one of your players on that roster. But all that aside, like, to me, that speaks directly to the part of this that we haven't talked about. And while the Pacers were incredibly unlucky, like, there's some luck in winning and staying healthy and winning a championship. And to your point, those lucky bounces do determine the future of the NBA. And then we can go back on them and look and say, oh yeah, when this random guy, like when Kevin Durant and Draymond Green got into an argument because Draymond in a seemingly meaningless game. Like those sorts of things.
It was SGA.
Happen.
SGA did it back then too.
I saw it. He poked the ball.
But
and caused that beef.
Nobody is talking about the Celtics playoff run last year. Like people were expecting them to do it this year. They went against no healthy teams at all the playoffs. Like at some point, that stuff kind of goes in the wash. And right. We think about who they are as a team. You could probably say the Celtics would have probably still won the championship last year, but they didn't play anybody healthy. I mean, like I said, the Warriors, their dynasty, the Tuck rule. Like we could talk about the Tuck rule, but everybody's just kind of like it's the Patriots dynasty. Like that's all part of it.
I think you made this point at the beginning is those things, they go away. And we remember when you were talking about Golden State is like, we don't remember the struggles. And sometimes those random bounces are the things that give you whatever spark or whatever catalyst or whatever confidence you need to go forward. And had it gone a different way, there's a panic trade. And like with the Warriors, it was like they were the first like jump shooting team to be competitive. Had they lost, we'd been like, all right, blow it up. That obviously doesn't work. Right?
Yeah,
like that's it was consistent. And then we went forward and maybe analytics would have stopped us from completely throwing it out altogether, but it would have held off all the shooting for one more year. And I think I guess that will be an interesting question is like it happens a lot in football and specifically is like it feels like after someone wins a championship, the rest of the league reacts in a way to try to emulate them or try to stop them. Is there something from this that we can learn?
I think we're going to learn more about what's happening in the East than the West from this. Learn from this. From the Thunder perspective, it's like, yeah, dude, execute like an all-time asset collection right before Adam Silver puts in a second apron that makes it impossible. Makes it impossible for you to sign 3 free agents. But like the ripple effects in the East, like first of all, we should get into the Pacers' future about this because they were the team that was best set up, we thought, after the Tatum injury. And in 2 years, when Haliburton's coming off this Achilles, Siakam will be 33, TJ's 35, Turner's 31, Mathurin's going to need to get paid. But to me, the ripple effects in the East are like, what is this conference now? Like, there are going to be teams like you're going to go into this offseason, and we will get into the Kevin Durant on this on the back end of this, where everyone with a decent team is going to be like, this is wide open. It's to me as crazy as 2016 of teams that are like, we should go all in and get someone now, especially knowing the price that you can get a aging star like Durant.
My first thought after a little bit of time went directly to Giannis.
Yes,
and what the Bucks do with Giannis, because this does not feel as much of a need to rebuild anymore as it feels like we have by far the best player in the East, and it ain't even close. What can we do around him this season? Because there is a pathway for him to get to a finals with a lot of work, but it's more doable now than it felt a week ago. And especially when Tatum was healthy, like you really, who are the two best? Are the Knicks now just the best team in the East? And who knows what they're going to look like? And if I'm Milwaukee, I'm saying, hey, Giannis, you stick with us, buddy. We're going to give you whatever we can. Yeah. Go ahead, carry this team to the finals. I think you can do it.
Yeah, if I'm the Cavs too, and I'm like, I feel a lot less bad about losing to this Pacers team, and a lot better about where I am in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, the Cavs are a great example. The Giannis stuff, like, I guess they could move Lillard's expiring contract. Like I feel like that's the anchor, right?
Yeah, but they also we just saw they're probably looking up right now, being like, my God, all we had to do was trade a pile of garbage, and we could have had Kevin Durant with Giannis in a conference.
I assume Kevin Durant. It seems as though whether you think he should have or not, he had some influence.
Yeah.
He may not. These places.
I don't care how it went down.
Right. His value certainly. Had he held on for one more day, or had the Suns held on for one more day, his value would have went through the roof because
and the East
the East is like he stayed in the West, but like the East, every team is like a Kevin Durant away from being in the finals, they would think.
But I think that there are some French players that might make some moves to the East that there's John Morant out there, maybe Trae Young, there's people Orlando's got to be,
oh yeah,
they got to be feeling like, hey, we made the right move here because we can make a run, a Pacers like run right now.
I got a question on this on the other side because we should come back in the East. But if you're one of the teams in the West after you saw this OKC team, do you view them as like an unstoppable juggernaut after the series? sort of like we did, like maybe going into the playoffs?
No, I mean, I think the whole conversation has been about how that unstoppable juggernaut is over. Like, it's not a thing that happens in NBA anymore. And I understand, like, Sam Presti created all this before the second apron, and they're in the best position to do so. But there was nothing. I mean, we started.
That was a good me impression.
Yeah,
using that every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sick of hearing it. You've been saying it all the time, and I push back every time. But I do think that we can't start this show by saying that it didn't feel like a coronation to us and think that somehow the rest of the West is now scared. No, I think the West feels open in a different way than the East feels open.
Of course.
Like, the West feels like it's open in that we can make a move. We just need
and everyone's good.
That's what I mean. It's like we need to make one move and we can be competitive, or something, get a bounce in our direction. Like, we could find ourselves in the finals against a team from the East, which it feels like nobody in the West respects them right now.
I mean, hell, Memphis thought that, after the first round, Memphis was like, we could have won that series. Like, we were up 30 until John Morant went out. Like,
exactly.
Golden State, hey, Curry got hurt. We could beat these guys. Like, they're just, if the Pacers could do it, there's this, people talk themselves into this stuff all the time. And I think those teams in the West are going to talk themselves into having a shot against this Thunder team based on what they saw in the finals.
David, I know that this is going to piss off one of everyone who's like ESPN always talks about, but you have the LeBron advent calendar of when he goes to different things.
Yeah.
Is this like the leap year when he looks up and is like, time to have Lee Jenkins write a story about how I need to go back to Cleveland in the season, or that I've always wanted to be attached to Disney and signed with Orlando?
It's time. It's time. We're getting there. It's coming. I was thinking he was at the Fanatics Fest, so I felt like he was brewing. I felt like some was brewing a little bit, where he was going to say, "Hey, man, Cleveland's always been my home. I love Cleveland. Lakers made the sale as Luka Doncic's team right now. I'm just over here just trying to hang out. Something. I felt like Fanatics Fest was the time, but it's coming. It's a brewing, everybody."
You think he could convince them to put his new franchise in Vegas, put it in the East, despite the fact that it's in the West? That's his strategy. It's like, hey, I'll own the Vegas team, but we're an East Vegas team. Put us in the Eastern Conference.
The LeBron Giannis LA Fitness workout video is coming. Give it 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, if they're bringing two teams, the other team is speculated to be Seattle, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can pull that one off.
Then Vegas has to be in the East.
Well, I think they're going to move. Honestly, this is the craziest thing about this, which is if there is
Memphis in the East,
Memphis and Minnesota, like Anthony Edwards might be looking up and being like, "This guy,
hello."
So a couple things on the Durant trade before we get out of here, because we were just talking about this. Of course, the return, like, the market for him for Eastern Conference teams would have been crazy if it had been one more day where everyone thinking they're in. But when you first got this news, he's in Houston. We saw the videos of him at Fanatics Fest where he was fake surprised about the trade on stage, and he had that like.
I believe Kevin Durant that he's never misled us before.
I mean, look, I'm not even roasting him for this. He immediately walked off stage. Told K. Yeah, I know.
I was just making a burner joke. Yeah. That's all.
Oh, good point.
you just trampled my burner joke. Yeah, you got it. All right, appreciate
it. Hand up, my bad. It's midnight on the East Coast.
I was just gonna say he would have been he's not the first NBA player to not tell the whole truth in front of Taylor Rooks, but we could go either way.
Well done. I like that. I appreciate it.
That's also a great point. I would have gotten that joke. But he had his whole acting job, and he went to Kay Adams and absolutely like roasted the Suns fans, being like, "You got what you want, guys," and then filmed a celebration video with Rich Kleiman. But I was wondering, when you first saw this come across the wire today, and like, were you surprised, even though he's 37 years old, about the return that they got for Kevin Durant?
I was. I mean, because we've talked about it before.
I mean, I was too.
I thought he was going to get at least one like substantial asset like this. I guess this is about him exerting his leverage, or it's about the fact that he's expecting a contract next season. But I was definitely surprised. What about you, David?
I wasn't too terribly surprised. I thought there may be like one sort of rocket sort of fringe player, like like Jabari Smith may have been somebody that you add to it, but I didn't think he was getting like the Desmond Bane haul at all. That type of picks, because like you bring Kevin Durant onto your roster when you feel like you're right there to a championship, and there's not a team that really felt that way And the league is also looking at champions, like finals where teams have given up, giving up a lot of picks and all this assets for a star player and to be top heavy. And they kind of look silly now. Nobody wants to look silly. Like I just kind of was not, was wondering where he was going to go. I thought the Rockets made the most sense because it's the most plug and play, but there was not going to be a haul for Kevin Durant. I never felt that way, because the Rockets they're going all in, and they may feel like but they're not a shoe-in for a championship, and that's kind of what you want with Kevin Durant. So I'm not totally surprised this was the haul.
But maybe you didn't expect him to go for a lot, but what was the best thing that they got from this trade?
The 10th pick.
10th pick, and then whatever you get for, I would assume. Well, I'm not going to assume, but I think it's possible that Jalen Green is also going for some other sort of assets.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what those assets are.
It's the flip. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not done with that, but I'm not sure what assets you're getting from him. Again, he may go to the East, and there may be a lot more interest in him going East. But I guess
the reason why I'm not surprised that he didn't go for a 4-pick haul or something like that. But the thing about it to me is the best asset that they got. You're saying a 10th round pick, or
I guess it's the combination of Jalen Green, who's still young and talented, and the 10th pick. But
they wanted to get rid of Jalen. All right.
No, you know my feelings about Jalen. Yeah, that's why I had to correct myself for the.
But also, Phoenix kind of blew this earlier. Like, you trade the dude at the trade deadline. You do all this in the trade deadline where he has higher value. They
tried to. He nuked it.
Well, yeah, but who lets, don't let the guy nuke it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you trade the dude.
Assume the nuke happens on the team that's expecting you to come, and they're like, oh, no, we don't, what we're offering, we're no longer offering. Yeah. It's not about them being scared to piss them off, right?
You know, the thing is Kevin Durant's 37 years old, and he's not going to give up years of basketball at this point, because the guy's practicing jump shots in the club. He's going to play basketball. But I really do think, I wasn't expecting a Desmond Bain haul. And we had talked about on our show, the Spurs part about it. It seemed like it was going to be 14 and Harrison Barnes and Keldon Johnson type of thing. But to me, I think teams got too cute. We had the reports of Minnesota refusing to give up Jaden McDaniels, which is one thing. But then it's the Heat report is that they wouldn't include Jaime Jaquez Jr. or Nikola Jovic or Hayward Highsmith in the 20th pick for Kevin Durant. And it's what are we doing? If it just from asset management wise, if you're a team that thinks you're good and this is the asking price, and you might be able to convince Durant on the back end of someone who's not going to give up one of the end years of his career, hey, we're a good team. We are going to play basketball in a way that you're going to enjoy. I actually think teams just got too cute around it.
I don't know. I mean, but also, what are you getting? What are the Heat getting with Kevin Durant? What happens?
The Heat or nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. What do the Heat get with having him on that roster? That's what I'm saying. You're going to get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is a win now asset. Yeah. And I just did not see a roster or a team in the league that Kevin Durant you win now with. Now the Rockets could maybe, but I don't see this thing where it's not like he's going to the Warriors, or you have this net super team, or what the Phoenix felt like it was at the time, where it's just this is the magic ticket to the finals. That's not available, and that's what you bring Kevin Durant in for. So it's just almost it just doesn't quite fit in the way that you would think it would.
The reported teams that were the mystery teams that had interest were Cleveland and Denver. And both those teams make a lot of sense to me. A ton of sense if they could have just beaten that offer by a little bit. And I know part of it might have been that Durant, it's clear he wanted to go to Houston. Right. His comments are clear that he was a part of it. But I love the Houston fit in a lot of ways with the fact they didn't have to give up anything, and they didn't have to give up anything really of value, and they kept all that depth where he's not even going to have to play that much in the regular season. Mm-hmm. He can play his 55 games and it'll be totally fine. Yeah. But I mean, there is a part of me that you mentioned the Magic before. Imagine if the Magic had just come in on this and been oh, this is the asking price. Yeah, we don't have a ton of picks, but we'll give you Anthony Black and Jet Howard and Jonathan Isaacs and whatever picks we have left. Because that's an offer to me that I think is probably more compelling. And then you're looking up and you're wow, we have Suggs, Bain, Kevin Durant, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero.
Yeah, I guess KD didn't like Disney World.
Yeah.
I don't imagine that I assume that Orlando made a call. I assume they called.
I don't know. They might have.
They made the big Bang trade. I'm sure that they at least inquired. They called his agent and was maybe. No state tax.
I thought we were going to get to a point where Durant was going to go to a not preferred team. I thought we were going to have a Kawhi Toronto situation with him. Like Charlie was saying, like he's just not going to not play. He's not going to dog it. He's not going to force himself out. You may not get him to re-sign, but you're going to get Kevin Durant for a little bit of time. And then maybe you try to figure out we could talk him into this thing, especially if you come close to a championship. I thought it would be one of those other fringe teams that would get him instead of this. And maybe if they waited a little bit longer, maybe that would have happened. But they wanted to get it done. They want him to go to where he wanted to go, and they want the Houston thing to work out. So that's how it happens.
Last question on this: Do you think? Or I actually have two more questions. One just popped in my head. First one: do you think they move Devin Booker now?
Nope. I think Devin Booker's made it clear. I mean, not that they have to do what he says, but he's made it clear that he wanted to stay there. It doesn't appear to me that they want to do a rebuild, but I guess maybe they are. I don't know. What do you think, David?
They should. I've been beating this drum for a long time. Like, moving Kevin Durant is a Band-Aid right now. Devin Booker is the move. Moving on Devin Booker is the only way to salvage your franchise for the next 6 or 7 years. You got no picks. You got Devin Booker. If you want to Devin Booker to agree to kind of move, just tell him to go talk to Bradley Beal about what it was like playing for the Wizards when you have nothing and you're not going anywhere and you're the best player. Now, Bradley Beal may have loved it because he just likes making money playing basketball and not having stakes. Having stakes. But Devin Booker, I think, should move, and Phoenix should move him. And that should be the move this offseason. That's the only way that you can have something in the next decade, pretty much, for your team.
God, do you remember when Bradley Beal and John Wall used to say that LeBron was ducking them and that they were a better backcourt than Stephen Clay?
No one remembers that but you. We all wiped that from our memory. That's your Wizards.
For the record, if you want to convince Booker to move, you just got to remind him that he's still playing with Beal for the next couple of years.
Right.
Okay, last, I got to give you one hypothetical here. If you're Houston now, you have Kevin Durant, and obviously you want to keep Amen Thompson. Does a tiny part of you just take out the phone and just call Milwaukee a tiny bit and be like, we're not Sam Presti, we're not building for the future, we got to take this 1 year at a time, and just be like, hey Bucks, how about you take Fred VanVleet, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepard, and a couple picks, and we'll take that Giannis off your hands.
Yeah, so obviously, I think that's not going to get Giannis.
We'll turbocharge your rebuild.
That's not going to get Giannis off of their hands.
A couple top 3 picks and a bunch of first-round picks who are still young, and Jabari and Shepard. And
I think yesterday maybe that would have worked. It ain't working now. it ain't working now. I mean, I think that
gets you a Giannis.
Milwaukee would have. Their stalemate was always going to be with Amen Thompson. I think that was always going to be the stalemate for Giannis. And now Milwaukee says we're going to the finals with Giannis and Kyle Kuzma, and whatever we can do, we're going to the finals.
When you Kuz, you lose. I can tell you that as a Wizards fan.
Oh gosh, this is and Beal. You don't have a good rhyming one for Beal too?
No, he hurt me too much.
You remember when the Wizards almost beat the Celtics at one time, and it was they're here. You
don't remember that, the Kelly Olynyk game?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I do. I do remember the Kelly Olynyk game.
It was the Kelly Olynyk game after the Kelly Olynyk and Kelly Oubre game when they got into a fight.
It's just a glorious history that we have here.
Nothing like talk about the Wizards after Game 7 of the NBA Finals, baby.
That's right. It's Bailey season. Can't wait.
That's how we know that it's time to go. All right, David. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Charlie, and all the great producers. Pavel, I love you. We out.
Love Island time.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.